The air hangs heavy over Elsinore, a pall cast not only by the late king's death, but also by the unsettling haste of his widow's remarriage. Denmark mourns, but within the castle walls, a different kind of disquiet festers. Claudius, the new king, attempts to steady the ship of state, offering hollow words of comfort and unity. But his speech rings false, a performance masking a deeper, darker truth. Hamlet, the prince, remains cloaked in mourning, his heart heavy with a grief that seems inconsolable. He watches his mother and uncle's ascension with mounting anger, his mind struggling to find solace. Whispers and secrets fill the corridors of Elsinore. Claudius, ever watchful, seeks the counsel of Polonius, his chief adviser. They discuss Hamlet's melancholic disposition with growing unease. Ophelia, caught in the storm of courtly intrigue, finds solace in the tranquility of the gardens. She is a gentle soul, ill-prepared for the darkness that is about to engulf Elsinore. The nights are long and filled with unease. Hamlet roams the castle ramparts, a silent sentinel haunted by grief and suspicion. Then in the dead of night, a specter emerges from the shadows. The ghost of the late king, returned from beyond the veil, appears to Hamlet. The ghost speaks of betrayal, of a foul and unnatural murder. He reveals the truth that has been hidden beneath a veneer of mourning and political expediency. "Revenge is foul and most unnatural murder," the ghost commands, his voice echoing with righteous anger. Hamlet swears to avenge his father's death, to cleanse the kingdom of the poison that festers within. But the path to revenge is a treacherous one, fraught with moral peril. As the ghost vanishes, Hamlet is left alone with his thoughts, burdened by the weight of his father's command. The world has shifted on its axis, and nothing will ever be the same. "The play's the thing," Hamlet mutters, a chilling premonition of the tragedy to come, "wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king." Hamlet's grief and the ghost's revelation weigh heavily upon him. He knows he must act, yet the path ahead is shrouded in uncertainty. Feigning madness seems his only recourse, a mask to conceal his true intent while he observes the court's machinations. Polonius, ever the shrewd adviser, watches Hamlet's descent into apparent madness with a keen, calculating eye. He seeks to understand the cause, suspecting affairs of the heart are at play, and the rejection of his daughter Ophelia. Ophelia is torn between her love for Hamlet and her duty to her father. Hamlet's changed behavior and harsh words wound her deeply. She wonders what has caused this rift in their affections. Polonius instructs Ophelia to spurn Hamlet's affections, believing his love is merely a passing fancy and a danger to her reputation. He forbids her from seeing him, adding to Ophelia's distress. Hamlet, feigning madness, cruelly rejects Ophelia, telling her to enter a nunnery and questioning her honesty. His actions further shatter her already fragile heart. Claudius, ever wary of Hamlet, hears Polonius's explanation with skepticism. While he outwardly agrees that Ophelia's rejection may be a factor, he suspects a deeper, more dangerous motive behind Hamlet's behavior. Hamlet wrestles with the moral implications of revenge and the unbearable weight of his existence. The ghost's command haunts his waking hours and torments his dreams. Claudius and Polonius, growing increasingly suspicious, decide to eavesdrop on Hamlet's conversation with Ophelia to determine the true source of his madness. Hamlet, still playing the part of a madman, denies ever having loved Ophelia, further crushing her spirit. His cruel words confirm Claudius's fears that Hamlet poses a threat. Claudius acknowledges that Hamlet's madness is not solely driven by lost love, but poses a greater danger to the throne and his own life. Ophelia's mental state deteriorates as she is torn between her love for Hamlet and her obedience to her father. The pressures mount, pushing her closer to the brink of madness. Hamlet uses the play as a means to gauge Claudius's reaction, hoping to confirm his guilt and solidify his resolve for revenge. He watches intently, seeking any sign of remorse or guilt. Hamlet, resolved to test Claudius's guilt, spent hours crafting a play, The Mousetrap, mirroring the late king's murder. Each line was a carefully laid snare, designed to expose the truth hidden within the king's heart. News of the play reached Claudius, filtered through Polonius's ever-watchful ears. Though intrigued, a seed of suspicion began to sprout within him. He could not ignore the subtle barbs in Hamlet's recent pronouncements, masked as madness. Polonius, ever eager to please, fueled Claudius's anxieties, whispering of Hamlet's growing instability and the potential threat it posed to the throne. He believed the play to be another manifestation of the prince's madness, but he sensed an underlying purpose nonetheless. Ophelia, caught between her father's loyalty to the king and her lingering affection for Hamlet, found herself increasingly isolated. The prince's erratic behavior had shattered her world, leaving her adrift in a sea of uncertainty. As the day of the performance approached, Hamlet meticulously rehearsed the players, ensuring every gesture, every word carried the weight of his accusation. He felt a strange mixture of dread and exhilaration, knowing that his moment of truth was at hand. The court assembled in the grand hall, a sea of expectant faces illuminated by torchlight. Claudius, adorned in royal regalia, sat upon his throne, Gertrude at his side. Hamlet, positioned near the stage, watched him intently, his senses heightened. The play began. A king lay sleeping in his orchard, unaware of the danger lurking nearby. Then a figure crept in, and with subtle movements poured poison into the king's ear, recreating the ghost's horrifying tale. As the scene unfolded, Claudius's composure began to crumble. His face flushed, his breath quickened, and his eyes darted nervously around the room. The truth, so carefully concealed, was now laid bare before him. Hamlet, his heart pounding with anticipation, watched Claudius's reaction with unwavering intensity. He saw the guilt etched upon the king's face, a confession more damning than any spoken word. Unable to bear the weight of his guilt any longer, Claudius sprang from his throne, a strangled cry escaping his lips. The play had struck its mark, shattering the facade of innocence he had so carefully constructed. Chaos erupted in the hall as Claudius fled, his departure leaving a trail of unanswered questions and mounting suspicion. The courtiers whispered amongst themselves, their eyes filled with apprehension. Left alone in the deserted hall, Hamlet felt a surge of grim satisfaction. He had his proof. Claudius's guilt was undeniable. The path to revenge, though fraught with peril, was now clear. Hamlet, fueled by the play's damning confirmation, confronts his mother in her private chamber, the weight of his father's murder pressing down on him. Gertrude, caught off guard, rises from her seat, a flicker of fear in her eyes. She anticipates a reprimand for her hasty marriage, but she cannot fathom the storm that is about to break. Unbeknownst to both, Polonius, ever the eavesdropper, hides behind a tapestry, hoping to glean the source of Hamlet's erratic behavior and report back to Claudius. Hamlet launches into a tirade, accusing Gertrude of betraying his father's memory and defiling the sanctity of marriage. His words are sharp, laced with bitterness and a palpable sense of disgust. Gertrude, overwhelmed by Hamlet's vehemence, attempts to defend her actions, but her words are weak and unconvincing. She is caught between her love for her son and her desire for the crown. Behind the heiress, Polonius grows increasingly anxious. He fears that Hamlet will uncover his role in spying and seeks to intervene. Hearing a rustling behind the tapestry, Hamlet, his mind consumed by thoughts of Claudius, jumps to the conclusion that the king is spying on them. He draws his sword, ready to strike a blow for his father. Polonius, realizing the danger, cries out in alarm, but his warning comes too late. Hamlet's sword pierces the heiress, finding its mark. Hamlet pulls back the heiress to reveal Polonius's lifeless body, sprawled on the floor. The realization of his mistake washes over him, a chilling reminder of the consequences of his actions. Gertrude stares at Polonius's corpse in horror, her face contorted with grief and fear. The accidental killing adds another layer of complexity to the already treacherous situation. Despite the tragic turn of events, Hamlet continues his tirade, now fueled by a sense of grim determination. He shows Gertrude two portrait miniatures, one of King Hamlet and one of King Claudius, and berates her for her choice, his anger burning hotter than ever. As Hamlet prepares to leave, he understands Gertrude's betrayal more clearly. His resolve hardens. He now knows with certainty that Claudius is a murderer and that the ghost's command must be fulfilled. Claudius, now certain of Hamlet's knowledge of his crime, knew he had to act decisively. The prince was too dangerous to be left unchecked. He summoned Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, old friends of Hamlet, for a clandestine mission. Hamlet, though feigning madness, was not foolish. He saw through Rosencrantz and Guildenstern's false friendship, suspecting their true purpose. He knew Claudius was plotting against him, but he could not discern the nature of the plot. Under the guise of diplomacy, Claudius prepared a letter to the King of England, a missive carrying a secret order, the immediate execution of Prince Hamlet. He entrusted the letter to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, unaware that Hamlet would soon discover its contents. During the voyage to England, Hamlet, under the cover of darkness, stealthily opened the royal letter. He was horrified to discover Claudius's treachery, the cold-blooded order for his execution. He knew he had to act quickly to save himself. Resourceful and determined, Hamlet replaced Claudius's letter with a forged one, ordering the execution of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern instead. He sealed it with Claudius's signet ring, ensuring its authenticity. He would not be a victim. He would be the orchestrator of his own survival. News of Polonius's death reached Laertes in France. Consumed by grief and rage, he returned to Elsinore, demanding justice for his father's murder. He was a volatile force, easily manipulated by Claudius's cunning. Claudius, ever the master manipulator, met with Laertes, feigning sympathy for his loss. He carefully planted seeds of doubt, suggesting that Hamlet was responsible for Polonius's death, and subtly fueled Laertes's thirst for revenge. Laertes, blinded by grief and Claudius's skillful manipulation, readily accepted the king's version of events. He vowed to avenge his father's death, setting the stage for a deadly confrontation with Hamlet. Claudius and Laertes, driven by their own desires for revenge and power, devised a treacherous plan. They would stage a fencing match between Hamlet and Laertes, but this would be no ordinary duel. Laertes, following Claudius's instructions, carefully selected a foil with an unbaited tip. He then dipped the point in a potent poison, ensuring that even a scratch would be fatal. This was not a fair fight. It was a calculated assassination. As a final measure, Claudius prepared a poisoned cup of wine, ostensibly for Hamlet to drink as a celebratory toast, but in reality, a backup plan to ensure the prince's demise. His web of deceit was complete, ready to ensnare its prey. Unbeknownst to Claudius and Laertes, Hamlet had escaped his intended fate in England. He returned to Denmark, a changed man, aware of the treachery that surrounded him, ready to face his enemies, though unaware of the deadly trap that awaited. Ophelia, unmoored by grief and Hamlet's cruel rejection, began to unravel. Her words became disjointed, her actions aimless. She wandered the castle grounds like a ghost, a fragile echo of her former self. She would approach the queen and king, offering them rue and daisies, singing fragments of old ballads, her mind fractured into 1,000 pieces. Her sorrow was a visible wound upon the court. Claudius, though implicated in so much darkness, felt a pang of remorse observing Ophelia's descent. He recognized the collateral damage of his ambition, the innocent lives shattered in its wake. Drawn to the water, Ophelia sat by a willow-lined stream. She wove garlands of wildflowers, singing softly to herself, lost in a world of her own creation. She stepped into the stream, the cold water numbing her feet. Her gown, heavy with dew and flowers, pulled at her, but she felt nothing, only a strange sense of peace. The branches she clung to gave way, and she drifted further into the water. Her clothes, heavy and waterlogged, dragged her down. She sang fragments of songs, unaware of her impending doom. Laertes, returned from France, arrived to find his sister's lifeless body pulled from the stream. His grief was a raw, visceral thing, a howl against the heavens. Claudius, ever the manipulator, seized upon Laertes' grief. He offered words of comfort, subtly stoking the flames of his rage, guiding it towards Hamlet, the perceived cause of his sister's madness and death. Laertes listened, his heart hardening with each word. The king's subtle accusations found fertile ground in his grief-stricken mind. Revenge, once a distant thought, now bloomed into a burning desire. Unaware of the tragic events unfolding, Hamlet continued his brooding vigil, wrestling with his own demons, oblivious to the storm brewing around him. Polonius's death, though unintentional, cast a long shadow. His absence was a void, a missing piece in the intricate web of Elsinore's court, and his death directly contributed to Ophelia's demise. Ophelia lay in state, a tragic figure of innocence lost. Her death was a stark reminder of the corruption that festered within Elsinore, a testament to the devastating consequences of revenge and deceit. The shadow of Elsinore deepened, drawing all within its reach into darkness. Hamlet, having narrowly escaped the clutches of the English king, finds himself aboard a returning vessel. The sea mirrors the turmoil within him, a constant reminder of the tasks that await. Returning to Elsinore, Hamlet chances upon a graveyard. The gravedigger's morbid jests and the unearthed skulls force a contemplation of mortality upon him. The gravedigger's song is haunting. A pickaxe and a spade, four and a shrouding sheet. Oh, a pit of clay for to be made for such a guest as meet. Horatio, ever the loyal friend, relays the tragic news. Ophelia, driven to madness and despair, has drowned. Laertes arrives, consumed by grief and fury. He throws himself into Ophelia's grave, a desperate attempt to hold onto the sister he has lost. Driven by a sudden, uncontrollable surge of emotion, Hamlet reveals himself and leaps into the grave, challenging Laertes in a fit of anguish. Claudius watches the scene unfold, his mind already calculating how to use this volatile situation to his advantage. Their struggle is fierce, a chaotic ballet of grief and vengeance played out in the very earth that will soon claim Ophelia. Pulled apart by the onlookers, Hamlet and Laertes glare at each other, their animosity palpable. The seeds of a deadly game have been sown. Claudius, ever the master manipulator, whispers in Laertes' ear, planting seeds of revenge and subtly guiding him towards a deadly course. Ophelia rests in peace, a tragic victim of the court's machinations and Hamlet's tormented soul. Hamlet, forever haunted by the specter of his father and the tragedy of Ophelia, continues his journey, the path ahead shrouded in uncertainty and danger. Claudius, ever the puppeteer, finalized his deadly plan. The fencing match, seemingly a fair contest of skill, was to be Hamlet's undoing. The poisoned blade, carefully chosen, awaited its moment. Fueled by grief and Claudius's subtle manipulations, Laertes honed his swordsmanship, each parry and thrust a testament to his vengeful intent. He was but a pawn in Claudius's game, blinded by rage. Hamlet, though wary, accepted Laertes' challenge. A sense of fatalism washed over him, a feeling that destiny, however cruel, was inescapable. The hall buzzed with a morbid excitement. The court had gathered, eager to witness the spectacle, unaware of the treachery that lay beneath the surface. Claudius, the architect of this deadly charade, watched from his throne, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. Success was within his grasp, or so he believed. The two young men faced each other, their swords gleaming under the torchlight. The air crackled with tension, the fate of Denmark hanging in the balance. Steel clashed against steel, each parry and thrust a dance of death. The spectators watched with bated breath, captivated by the deadly ballet. Hamlet, surprisingly agile, landed the first hit, throwing Laertes off balance. A murmur rippled through the crowd, admiration mixed with unease. Claudius, ever watchful, offered Gertrude a poisoned goblet of wine, ostensibly to toast Hamlet's success, but in reality, a final safeguard against any unexpected outcome. Gertrude, oblivious to the treachery unfolding around her, raised the goblet and drank, sealing her own doom. The poison coursed through her veins, a silent harbinger of death. Seizing an opportunity, Laertes struck, the poisoned blade piercing Hamlet's flesh. The deed was done, the venom now working its insidious magic. Hamlet staggered, the poison spreading rapidly through his body. He knew his time was short, the final act of this tragedy about to unfold. The stage is set, a duel masked in sport, concealing a serpent's venom. Hamlet, unaware of the treachery, prepares to face Laertes. Steel clashes against steel, a dance of death masked as a friendly contest. Claudius observes, a subtle smile playing on his lips as Laertes presses his attack. Hamlet fights valiantly, displaying skill and determination, yet a subtle exhaustion seems to weigh upon him. He scores a point, momentarily relieving the tension. To celebrate Hamlet's apparent victory, Claudius offers him the poisoned wine. But fate, or perhaps a mother's instinct, intervenes. Gertrude, unable to bear the sight of her son in potential danger, drinks from the poisoned cup, defying Claudius's intent. A fatal mistake sealed with a mother's love. A gasp, a tremor, and then Gertrude collapses. The poison works swiftly, her life extinguished before their very eyes. Claudius watches, his carefully constructed facade beginning to crumble. Amidst the chaos, Laertes seizes his chance, striking Hamlet with the poisoned sword. The prince recoils, the venomous touch searing through his flesh. The game turns deadly. As Gertrude fades, her lifeblood staining the stones, Claudius's carefully laid plans unravel. The court, once a picture of regal composure, descends into pandemonium. The poison begins to take its toll on both Hamlet and Laertes. They stand, locked in a macabre dance of death, their fates intertwined by treachery and revenge. Racked with guilt and the agony of the poison, Laertes confesses the truth. Claudius orchestrated the duel, and the sword was tipped with venom. The court is stunned into silence. Hamlet, fueled by Laertes' revelation and the poison coursing through his veins, exacts his revenge. He forces Claudius to drink the poisoned wine, sealing his fate. With his final act of vengeance complete, Hamlet succumbs to the poison. Elsinore is left in ruins, its royal family decimated by treachery and revenge. The shadow of Elsinore has claimed its final victims. The poison worked swiftly. Claudius, his face contorted in agony, collapsed at Hamlet's feet. Justice, long delayed, was finally served. The reign of Claudius, built on deceit and murder, ended in a grotesque spectacle. His ambition had consumed him, leaving behind only ruin. Laertes, his honor satisfied, succumbed to the poison. His final act was one of redemption, revealing Claudius's treachery and paving the way for justice. But the poisoned blade had done its work. Hamlet, his vengeance achieved, felt the darkness creeping in. The poison coursed through his veins, stealing his strength and dimming his vision. Horatio, ever loyal, knelt beside his friend, his heart breaking with each shallow breath Hamlet took. He was the last anchor to a world slipping away. "Report, me and my cause, aright, to the yet unknowing world." Hamlet's voice was a mere whisper, his life ebbing away with each word. And with that, Hamlet breathed his last. The prince, the scholar, the avenger was gone. The weight of Denmark's fate now rested on other shoulders. As the sun rose, casting its pale light upon the scene of devastation, Fortinbras, Prince of Norway, arrived at Elsinore. He came not as an invader, but as one with a claim, an opportunity seized in the wake of chaos. Horatio, the loyal friend, remained, ready to fulfill Hamlet's last request. He would be the voice of truth, the chronicler of the tragedy that had befallen Elsinore. "Let me speak to the yet unknowing world how these things came about," Horatio began, his voice echoing through the chamber. The story of Hamlet, the story of Elsinore, had to be told. The fallen lay in state, a testament to the destructive power of revenge and ambition. Elsinore was a graveyard, its future uncertain, its past forever stained with blood. Fortinbras, now king of Denmark, stood upon the ramparts of Elsinore, the wind carrying the echoes of the tragedy that had unfolded. The kingdom was his, but the cost was immeasurable. The shadow of Elsinore would linger for generations to come, a stark reminder of the corrupting influence of power and the devastating consequences of revenge.